lovely to meet you. Thanks very much for dashing across hot from your main stage performance. So, and Mikos, who was on stage with you, I don't think he's going to be able to join us for this, or he might be coming along later. We'll see how it goes. Live and direct, that's what happens in broadcasting. But let's just set the context to this a little bit. So, 5 years ago, diversity, equity, and inclusion, it kind of jumped onto the corporate agenda in a way that it hadn't been before. Partly, the catalyst was George Floyd's death in the US and a lot more discussions around racism. But then now conversations are a bit more nuanced. So we're seeing some people arguing that diversity and inclusion has gone too far. We're seeing a lot of others talking about recruitment isn't enough. We've got to do much more to help people accelerate and grow within organizations. So there's a lot to unpack in this discussion, but we'll see where we can get to. But just starting with the kind of climate in the US. Obviously, there's been a political shift at the top, which is discouraging these kind of programs. From where you are, how is that being experienced every day by companies and employees in the US?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think we're a little different at Xero because we're a global company and we don't trade on the NASDAQ, we trade on the ASX. So in our market, as an example, gender equity stats are required. And so we publish actually our gender equity as an example and our targets. So we're in a bit of a different place. Having said that, I think you are right that the environment in the US has certainly pivoted. And I think if I were a corporate leader, I think of this for Xero, my job every day is to create an enduring, and we talked about this on stage, an enduring set of values, and the kinds of people I want to attract. And I would say a company where diverse thought can flourish. We continue to believe that at Xero. I believe it. I say to our employees every day, we serve customers in 220 markets. We serve people who are on the right. We serve people who are on the left. We've just bought a company in Tel Aviv. I have employees who, may be very pro, what's going on if you're Israeli, or I have companies that are appalled by what's happening in Palestine. So my point to our employees is our job is not to take a side. My job is to create an environment where diverse ideas can flourish. And we believe at Xero, that happens when you are able to recruit very diverse thinkers, period. Full stop. That's it. Different experiences, diverse thinkers, and that is the way we feel like the path through is for us to keep doing the things we need to be successful while being mindful of obviously all the climates in which we operate.
And that's clearly a strategy that's also based on data, because there's a huge amount of academic research showing that diverse teams thrive much more than less diverse teams. But we are clearly seeing other businesses not choosing to go down that road and being influenced by political winds, both in the US and in Europe. What do you think the impact of that could be in the longer term?
Well, look, I think a couple of things. First of all, and you've also seen companies that stand by the fact that they want to build inclusive workforces. Now, I think the most important thing is things have been conflated. The idea that diverse thinking is anti-performance has been conflated. The idea that good recruitment is recruiting people who look exactly like the other has been conflated. So I believe you build, and the idea that you are hiring for color or gender and not performance has also been conflated. I always say to people, I don't believe I got the job because I'm a woman. I'd like to think I got the job because I built a resume and a set of experiences that are highly valuable to Xero. Full stop. Full stop. And at the same time, I can appreciate that the company that I joined, the board had diverse thinkers, the company itself was also diverse, because that meant to me that I could join a place where I could bring my full abilities and I could also feel a sense of belonging. That's it, right? And so I do think that long term, I believe employees are attracted to companies. And again, remember, I talked about system of congruence. I didn't say what are those values. I'd say people are attracted to working at companies that are congruent with their values and that they understand what the company stands for. Now, it might stand for something different than what I stand for. It might stand for, President Trump's policies. I think what employees will look for is enduringly they're going to places where their values fit and where they can be themselves, period. And so our job is to create that environment, and I think that's the job of any company, to be clear on what it stands for.
So creating the environment, making those roles attractive to people. But another part of the process, I think especially here in the Nordics, is that recruitment happens through your network. You hear about a job through somebody you know, and if you've built up a network over many years, that's a lot easier than if you're a newcomer to a market or a country. I don't know how similar that is in the US, or what your thoughts are on how to kind of navigate that.
Yeah, so look, I mean, the reality is I built a startup called The Board List, 10 years ago. It was all about recruiting or building a slate of board directors that was beyond your physical network. It was like looking at third and fourth party recommendations. And, we scaled that platform pretty successfully until we sold it to solve this problem in the boardroom, because board directorships are also passed around only by the people you know. So clearly this idea of only going to the first order network and not finding the second or third is a systemic challenge. Now, I'd say over the last 10 years, platforms like LinkedIn have evolved where they can show you farther order networks. I'd also say many companies have, in some way or shape or form, adopted the Rooney Rule. If you don't know the Rooney Rule, it's the rule that was, established in American football long, long ago, that you have to look at all the people who are the potential for the job and build a diverse slate. So at least many companies I know today focus on the need to have a diverse slate for any recruitment. But I think you do need to look at systems that can give you third and fourth order networks, or people who are defined by the skill set, not by previous experience.
And once people are brought into a company, one of the other discussion points around diversity has been, how do we get more diverse CEOs? How do we get people rising up through the ranks? And what kind of support do different groups of people need? What do you think needs to happen in an internal culture to create those opportunities and encourage people to climb the ladder?
Sure. Well, first, a few things. If you want to ascend to the C-suite, I always say one thing is you have to also have gender equity and diversity in not just the support functions, but also the mainline functions. So as an example, at Xero, and this was not by design, our CFO is a woman, our CRO is a woman, and our Chief Product and Technology Officer is a woman. By the way, all our traditional support roles are filled by men. Our Chief People Officer is a man. Our Chief Legal Officer is a man. Our Chief Marketing Officer is a man. So somehow we've inverted, but I'm good because those roles are typically the feeder roles to a CEO job, right? So I think I'd say in your C-suite, also look at making sure that you're not just looking at diversity, but in all the paths of C-suite, that the line jobs also, you look at the ratios there. I think that's one quite important thing. Now, the second thing I think is you acknowledged it. One of the biggest things that happens gender equity-wise is women are disproportionately caregivers, and they drop out in the middle of their career, right? So I think anything a company can do to keep women from dropping out, but participating by offering the support to participate is important. So maybe the support to participate is job share. Maybe the support to participate is family care at work. Maybe the support to participate is time off for caregiving. Right? Whatever you can do to keep people at these very critical years in middle management from leaving, I think is quite important, because you and I both know if you exit entirely for several years and come back, just by virtue of the org structure, the person who stayed has ascended, right? Just by virtue of attrition, and you will enter where you left. So you will be behind. And so I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not here to judge anybody who leaves the workforce. I know many people who have to leave the workforce for caregiving or want to, and that's fine. Is there an opportunity cost in ascension to exiting entirely? There is. And I think the last thing that requires, though, is for people who need to leave for work and want to stay, to be negotiators and identify what they need to be able to stay. And I think it's often a question people don't ask. And if you don't ask, you don't know what the company might be able to do for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite important. So you need to learn to negotiate, not from a place of entitlement, but like, I'd like to stay, but these are the things I would need in support to stay, to see what's possible.
Thank you. One final brief answer. So what would successful DEI look like for you in, say, 2030 from now?
Well, yeah, first of all, I actually believe it's a pretty enduring definition. It's not 30 years hence, it's like even today, and it was 10 years ago. I mean, to your point, there's cycles right now politically on DEI. Let's park those. I think a great workforce looks like one where it has diverse thinking at every level. It has high performance and relationship, and I think this is quite important. Relationship between how you perform and the systems at work, right? So there has to be measurement of performance. So this whole idea that somehow we're recruiting low performers when we recruit for DEI, it's just a misnomer. You need to have equitable systems of performance, equitable systems of recruitment, diverse thinking, and you want to see diversity in line and support roles so you have equal opportunity to excel.
Yeah. Sukhinder, we are on the clock, and that is, I'm afraid, all we've got time for, but loads for us to think about, and thank you so much for sharing your insights here at Nordic Business Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.